prosecution service, then we have a full complaints and feedback system, which we. So if you want to find out any more information, we do have the CPS website. We've also got national Twitter account and CPS Northeast Twitter account as well. So I think I've said enough. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Mr. Bolade, after. We'll do that after.
Do you want to take questions later? That's fine. As I say, I've got a few leaflets. This is the one about supporting witnesses, and the others just recap on what I've already told you today. So thanks very much, everyone.
That was a brilliant one from the CPS, and personally, I said earlier that reading the book of Jeffrey Archer, I've learned what Crown prosecutors do. They'll calm down in the land of fantasy. Well, in real life and in real times now, I've had the Crown prosecutors speak in my presence, in my lifetime. So that's a good one. Thank you for coming. We will be taking some, we want to announce that please we will be taking some video recordings. If you have exceptions to that, please do let us know. So you can be excused. Yes. Okay, thank you. I'll be calling on Miss Nana Shante to have a speech.
To have the introduction of Ms. Nana Asante. She's a former mayor of Arrow. I think you forget that part. Thank you for coming.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Okay, I hope the presentation comes up because we tested it earlier.
Yeah.
And all we need is the PowerPoint. Okay, so yeah, some of us we use technology, but we get stuck, and we always need the youngsters to help us. So I was asked to tell you a little bit about the work we did. I'm from an organization called. Have you got it as a presentation? Okay, so this is my introduction. I've learned that a picture tells 1,000 words, so I tend to use the picture thing. As you can see me in my mayoral chain, but these are the organizations I'm involved in. Global African Congress, which you see here, Impact Coalition UK, which is about the UN decade, and Africans for JC Values, Eco-Conscious Citizens, Harrow Fair Trade Network, Sunflower Cooperative, Ethical Name Change, the Connection to Mobility. And I've got Fair Trade again because I sit on the National Campaigners Committee for Fair Trade. So this in a gist sort of tells you what I'm involved in. And Save the Woman is a member both of Global African Congress and Impact Coalition UK. So that's the link, as it were. So in terms of hate crime, afrophobia is a form of hate crime. But often people don't talk about it, or it's dismissed or subsumed into others. So we were looking at how do you survive and how do you thrive in spite of afrophobia. And so we decided we needed a toolkit, and we needed definitions, and we needed to actually say what it is. So we produced a toolkit. We gave people the vocabulary which they can use, examples which validate your lived experience, and we researched the evidence so that people realize that what they are feeling is real. Because I don't know if any of you have heard of gaslighting. It's based on a film. But again, sometimes you're being made to feel as if what you're talking about isn't real. It's all in your head. So it's about making sure that people actually understand. And one of the things that we've learned, and I love this quote, Shirley Chisholm, she's the first African-American woman to be elected to Congress. And she said, you don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas. So if you see something wrong, you have to do something about it. And I'm touched by what You said earlier about how if the Crown Prosecution Service is told what is wrong, they can improve. So it's no use complaining in your house. You need to let them know. And in the same way, what we found is we needed to know what was. We decided to do something about it. We knew we needed information. So ENA, which is the European Network Against Racism, funded a project which was a partnership with Africa Centre in Ireland. And the project was about documenting afrophobia, structural and institutional racism, defining afrophobia, and producing a toolkit for fighting it. And one thing that we were insistent on is that we needed to call it by its name. Call it afrophobia. Some people will say afrophobia. No, it's not a hairstyle. It's afrophobia. There's a link to Africa. And for those who know the Gilchrist symbol, Sankofa, it's go back and fetch it. It's that sometimes you need to go backwards to go forwards. If you notice that, for example, with a bow and arrow, when you pull back, it goes further. So sometimes going back is a way of getting things done. And how did we do it? We did a street stall in Burntook, North London, and we talked to people on the street, and this was outside one of the shopping areas. And we sort of were trying to find out what they felt about it, what their experiences were. Then we had roundtable meetings. We came to Middlesbrough, and Save the Woman hosted us. Well, we had a roundtable meeting. We had one in Bristol, we had one in Northampton, and one in London. And in all those roundtables, we were trying to hear from what people's experiences were. Northampton especially was quite interesting because we had a lot of young people. And I think for the older, it was an intergenerational group. And what was the shock for some of the older generation is that the youngsters were saying the same things that they'd been through. They thought, oh, we thought that was sorted. And they were talking about things that, and then we went to Brighton Labour Party conference. We decided to host a fringe meeting, and we again talked about that. So then what did we come up with? We came up with a report. So we had a definition in 3 parts. First of all, the word itself, what is afrophobia? We had examples, and we got the context. So the definition, afrophobia is prejudice, discrimination, fear, hatred, or bigotry towards people of African heritage and things African. And when we say things African, sometimes it's your food. The comments that somebody will make about it, etc. That's afrophobic. And then in the book, in the report, we went into the definition that you'll find in the Oxford Living Dictionary. But then we made another point that, when people subdivide racism, because afrophobia is a form of racism, but they'll say anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and racism. What's that when it's at home? They are all racist. So if you're going to subdivide, don't dismiss afrophobia as something you don't talk about. Then you need to say afrophobia, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. Whatever it is you're saying, we say don't leave it out. And I'm talking about these ones being based on race. So these are the ones that I'm talking about. If you're subdividing, it's a form of afrophobia not to mention it. And the reason why people of African heritage feel strongly about it is that the whole edifice of enslavement and trafficking of Africans was based on afrophobia. Because 500 years before, Africans were at the courts of Europe. They were known as les savants. They were the people who people looked at to get information and knowledge, etc. So what happened? How did these people who were at the courts, the royal courts in France and in all the European royal courts, suddenly become people you traffic, who are now subhuman? In American law, they were 3/5 of the human being. How did that happen? Because of afrophobia. There was a whole deliberate deciding that people weren't human. And it's funny how information can be twisted, and you can actually do that. People start believing it to the extent that even sometimes people internalize it. So in the report, we have 18 examples. So it's interesting. And then in terms of context, we talk about ethnicity, we talk about hair, because African hair causes a lot of problems, whether it's in schools, whether it's in, whether your hair is plaited, whether it's twisted, whether it's rasta, it can cause a problem. Speech, the way you talk, I remember one of my things was, you know, you are an audible foreigner, you know, because you don't have a British accent. And so that can be, for example, if I call, they know, oh, she's not British. But if my children call, they don't know. You know, especially, and so it's those kind of things that some people feel it, especially recent migrants. Even the way you talk becomes a problem. Then physical characteristics. I mean, it's interesting when you look at physical characteristics, because the funny thing is, they mock. I remember as a child, I used to read Tintin. I'll say Tintin because, or Tintin, because I read it in French. And when they talked about Africans, or they characterized Africans, everything is exaggerated, from the lips to the butt to everything. And yet, people will go and get Botox to get enlarged lips. So you ask yourself, what's that about? You know, and people talk. And so again, human beings, we are the most strange, you know, some of our things are ridiculous. And it reminds me of once I went to a school during African History Month, and we were telling children about the Bristol bus boycott. And that 5-year-old made us squirm, because the 5-year-old actually said, and why couldn't people sit next to each other? And there isn't a sensible answer. That human beings are silly. You decide that this person can sit next to this person because. So a child was asking, to the child it didn't make sense. But of course they're living in a world where they sit next to everybody. They've been socialized to understand that people are human beings. And for example, I tell my youngest is 26. So when I tell her that there was a time when Marks and Spencer didn't have Asians or Africans behind the till, she looks at me like, what? Yeah. There was Dame Jocelyn Burrow, had to actually, because she was on the board of Marks and Spencer, and she had to make a point and say that, look, we're not there. And so she had to get a group of young women, again, very sexist, as if the men didn't matter, had to teach them how to behave so that they didn't cause any aggravation, and got them behind the tills. Now we go into Marks and we see people behind the tills and we find it normal. It wasn't. So one of the things I tell people that when you are fighting afrophobia, you yourself need to respect yourself. It's easier said than done, but you need to learn that. So I put it as remember your roots. So for example, when I was mayor, one of the things I did was I went to, there was a good excuse for going. My dad was 90 at the time. So I was going there anyway, but it turned into an official visit. So I visited the mayor of Accra. And so the mayor of Accra then decided to, and in the Ga tradition, if there's a big occasion, they will rename you. So gave me a new name, Nadenswa, from the Gamashi area, because that's where that particular local authority is. But it's that kind of thing, and then gave me Kinte and all that, and it was like, well, it's good you're home, and we just want you to remember who you are. And the reason also I say that, on one of our leaflets, there's an African proverb which says, no matter how long a log has been in water, it doesn't become a crocodile. And I want that to sink in, because sometimes I've had arguments with my children, oh, I'm British. I say, yeah, but your face is your passport. You might be British, you might be carrying a British passport, but your face is still your passport. So you need to understand who you are, appreciate it, because that influences how you're treated. It's not so that you internalize it in a negative way, but that you take it as a positive. So one of the things, again, taking Shirley Chisholm's words, where we campaign for justice, we don't sit back. There was a problem where somebody had been expelled or suspended from the Labour Party. So we wrote an open letter, and you can see these are some of the people who were behind. We had a meeting, discussed the letter, made sure it was right. The person was reinstated because we made the case that the reason they were putting the person on wasn't right. Another campaign for justice, we took a petition of about 3,000 signatures. Again, this is Labour Party headquarters. You can see a bit on the left, but that is the kind of campaigns we've been involved in. And it's to tell people that if you see something wrong, don't sit back, do something about it. Petitions are quite powerful. It is hard work trying to get the signatures, but it also raises awareness. So a petition is good from that point of view. So if you're experiencing hate crime of any sort, sometimes get people behind you. Sometimes people will be surprised that this is happening, but they will support you, sometimes with difficulty. But this is Middlesbrough. Again, we believe that some of the practices in children's services are afrophobic. So we've been asking for an independent investigation into children's services, because we look at the pattern, and again, that's the sort of thing that sometimes when you complain that something is wrong, you need to do the groundwork. You can't just say, oh, that's how it is. You need to do the groundwork. You need to talk to people. You need to document and make a case. So here we went to Andy McDonald MP, we were outside the office, and we were demonstrating. And what is also good to remind people is that when you're in a country which is relatively free, although they're trying to criminalize demonstrations, but at the moment it is relatively free, you can speak up. So there's no excuse not to. In some countries, you end up bundled and nobody will know where you are, you end up in solitary confinement, etc. So these two organizations, this is the email if you want to contact, or simply contact Olaleko. He has the details. But another thing I want to go into is for you to think about that Save the Woman is a valued member of both organizations, as I said. And one of the things they've done as a result of what we perceive to be afrophobic, the way in which Children's Services treats African parents and other parents, is that we decided that we will run Afrocentric parenting course and give people the skills. Because sometimes there's misunderstanding of language, etc. But it's also for people to understand what the law is in this country. You can't just say, oh, it's my culture, it's not acceptable. You need to learn the norms and you need to behave in a certain way. But one of the things that we found interesting was language. There are people who use the word beat, and they even mean a smack. And you know, it's about how people use language. He beat me, oh. It doesn't mean that, but if you say beat, it gives connotations of this person was battered. So it's also about teaching people that learn that you're in a different place, use vocabulary different. You know, for example, Americans will say pants when they mean trousers. So it's like that. Just realize that we speak English, but they speak a different English. So it's about that. So we would like Save the One to run more Afrocentric parenting skill courses. They've got 3 levels, 101, 201, and 301, which is how you engage with the statutory sector. The organization needs to recruit and train community advocates, retain legal experts, recruit and train an administrator, and recruit and train caseworkers. Because sometimes it's about how you present the case. One of the good things that has happened with Save the Woman, because they've worked with a social worker who is actually employed by, I think, the NHS, and that social worker has pointed out what parents can do to reassure the authorities so that children are not unfairly taken into care. So fundraising is urgent. Like any voluntary organization, we always need money. And how can you help? You can give a check if you've got some spare cash. I know there's a cost of living crisis, but if you find some money next to the sofa, you can always send it towards Save the Woman. You can run a fundraising event. You know, Macmillan does Macmillan Coffee Mornings. You can do something similar, but make it the beneficiary Save the Woman. So it can be a cake sale, it can be anything, but do something so that, you know, little things, little drops of what, make a mighty ocean, as they say. You can donate online, and you can get details from Olaleko. They've got a bank account that you can pay in. You can sponsor. They've got an online shop that you can also patronize, because that helps. And then I'll end with a few quotes just to lift us up, because sometimes hate crime, it is a difficult topic, but I'm glad we're doing this because it's important that we address these things. Not talking about things is the worst thing that we could do. Thurgood Marshall, for those, the youngsters especially, if you don't know who Thurgood Marshall is, he was one of the first African Americans to get on the Supreme Court. And he said, none of us got where we are solely by pulling ourselves by our bootstraps. We got here because somebody, a parent, a teacher, an Ivy League crony, or a few nuns bent down and helped us pick up our boots. So we need to remember that we are interconnected and we owe a lot to sometimes our teachers and people who have helped us. The Martin Luther King also said, whenever men and women straighten their backs up, they are going somewhere, because a man can't ride your back unless it is bent. So it's also about us taking responsibility. Yes, we live in a hostile environment, but it's also about the attitude we portray. If we cower, people will take advantage. So we need to get that confidence of saying that, look, you have a right to be here. You are also precious in God's sight. And you'll find all sorts of people everywhere who are rooting for you. But one of the worst things you can do is to cower. So if you straighten your back up, you're going somewhere. So I like that quote. And Angela Davis, another icon, she said, I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept. And in a sense, that's a bit like Shirley Chisholm saying that if you see something that's wrong, do something about it. And we heard from Gale that if you see something you don't like the letters, say it. They're not mind readers. If you tell them, they'll do something about it. You know, again, we all come from different cultures. Maybe they read the letter and to them it's okay. But by telling them, they changed it and people have appreciated it. And last, just remember, struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation. And that's just to remind us that if you think you made progress, don't just sit on your laurels, because you're likely to go backwards. Because some of the things that are happening today in terms of hate crime is partly because I think we got complacent. We know that we've got Race Relations Act, we've got the Equality Act, everything is okay. No, if you don't protect your freedoms, you lose them. And for the youngsters, Coretta Scott King was Martin Luther King's wife, so widow at one stage, but she's also past the 40th. So again, if you want to join any of these organizations, the emails are there, or contact Oladeko. He's a member of both. So thank you very much for listening.
Again, we will have a question at the end of the whole session, and that was not just quite insightful, it was really thought-provoking. And the two last quotes actually got me. If you keep bending, keep riding back. You need to stand up, and then when you stand up, well, I'm trying to paraphrase. You know,
go somewhere.
So that I'm not charged for plagiarism. Anyway, that was a very brilliant one. Thank you so much, Nana. We appreciate you. We want to call on the Cleveland Police, and I have both PC Danny Gibson and Satnam Singh. But I don't know how that will be done. Bro.
We'll do a double act. Don't worry. We'll go first. Let me get some applause. I'll just hand off now.
Firstly, thanks to all for inviting me. It's good to be here. Firstly, I'll talk a little about my role. So, I've been in post in this role since May. So, I'm a police officer. So before that, I was kind of running around on blue lights in Hartlepool. But they applied for this role, feeling like hate crime's always been a topic that's been important to me. So when the role came up, I jumped at the chance really. So a little bit about what my role includes. So I am part of the engagement team, so some of you may have seen other members of the engagement team before. The rest of the team goes out to lots of community events, deals with different organisations. We kind of bridge that gap between communities and the police. My role kind of supports them in a way, so I'll go out and try and educate, as I am today, around hate crime and what we do and how to report hate crime. Part of the role I also, so every day I'll come in, I look at hate crimes that happened the day before, so I'll make sure that everything's been flagged correctly, and I'll make sure we're kind of doing what we're supposed to be doing with them crimes, but it also means that I have a good idea of what's going on within our communities, and I can kind of look at trends, and if there's any kind of work we need to do within the communities, then I can make that happen. I work alongside national and regional counterparts so that we can share good practice, we can learn from each other. If you're working in silo, then there's probably good work going on in other parts of the country that we can learn from. I work with people above me to scrutinise hate crimes, so we look with the hate crimes within Cleveland are mainly dealt with by our neighbourhood teams, so I'll look within meetings to look at individual jobs for them areas and look at the work that we're doing and if we're doing it correctly and what other things that we could be doing to make it better. And then delivering training. So part of my role that I'm working at the moment, I've been out there since May, getting into communities, talking to people around hate crimes and their experiences. So that's helped me to shape training. So I'll be going out there and delivering training to the new police officers that come in. I'll be delivering some refresher training to the police officers that we've already got out there. So they're well versed, they're well refreshed in hate crime and how we can tackle it. And then also looking at things within control rooms, so when people ring up, it's always people from control rooms, staff members that we speak to first, and making sure that they're aware of what hate crime is, how they can flag it correctly so that we can deal with it appropriately. How to report hate crime then? This has kind of improved vastly over recent times. So originally it was you'll call us, so it's 999 in emergency. If it's not an emergency, 101. We've kind of realised that some people might be sat in a queue for 10-15 minutes. Who's got time to do that and then have the 10-15 minute conversation with the person on the other end of the phone? So we've got two new ways really of reporting to us. So you can report directly online from that website. Quite a simple process, a few little tick boxes of drop-down menus, but then also we've got the Copper app there which we can use, so it's already obviously been mentioned. An app that you can download just on your app store, it's called Copper, Cleveland Online Policing app, I believe that's right, Sarah, is it? So that app is fantastic, so you can not only report crime, it gives you loads of different options around advice around loads of different things and directs you to the right place, because I can imagine nothing more frustrating than ringing 101, being sat on the phone for 20 minutes to find, well actually it's counsel I need to speak to, so it kind of helps us in that way that it saves you guys time. The other way to report hate crime, third-party reporting centres, so these were set up several years ago. To kind of, we realised that, so if anyone does want a list, we can get them online, but there's obviously lists that we've got available. So we realised that people don't always want to tell the police directly, or they don't find, might be language barriers, or it might be that you feel like you don't want to call up or you don't want to walk into that police station. So to overcome them barriers, we've got third-party reporting centres. So we train up people to know what hate crime is and have that awareness to help people to report. So there's a list of centres all throughout Cleveland where you can go in and you can either, they can support you to report to the police, or if you don't want the police to know, that's fine, but we still want to know what's going on, because even if that person doesn't want to have that communication with the police or want to go to court or anything like that, we value the information anyway, because it might be that other people are suffering in silence, so we can do things within those areas, so we can target areas to try and improve what's going on with putting PCSOs in the area, or police officers in that area, certain things that we can do even without the information in terms of that person's name, date of birth, etc. So we just need to know kind of where it's happened, the time it's happened, and we can kind of work from that. What happens when you report hate crime to us then? I feel this kind of doesn't, a lot of people don't know, and you wouldn't know unless you did report something to us. So if it's not an emergency, obviously 999 always an emergency, and then the police officers that come out, they will then deal with that investigation. If it's not an emergency, if it's either 101 or you've done it online or through the Copper app, we would deal with it, what's called our primary crime investigation unit. So this is a team of police officers that are in our control room, so they would deal with the initial part of the investigation. So they would call you back, they would speak to you around what's happened, ask a few questions, get all the information from you. So they'll then record that in our systems. And then also, if there's any kind of safeguarding, they would be able to point you in the right direction or make sure you're safeguarded if that's need be. That would then, once it's a crime and recorded in our system, we would go through it to our neighbourhood team. So this kind of is a point where it shows that hate crimes dealt with more importantly sometimes than other crimes. So if, for example, if there was a criminal damage and it was a not bog standard criminal damage, and on that phone call there was no witnesses, there was no CCTV, there's a likelihood that that might get screened out and we wouldn't even get a police officer to speak to you because that apart from on that phone call, because we've got no lines of inquiry, and obviously there's a lot going on out there and we need to put our resources in the right areas. If it's a hate crime and it's flagged as a hate crime, there would always be a police officer. It would always get tasked to our neighbourhood team, and that neighbourhood police officer who knows what's going on in that area would then make contact and talk through that investigation with you. And even if there's no victims or anything, we can make sure, if you want victim support, we fill in what's called on there is a VRAM, so that's a victim risk assessment matrix. So we would ask a lot of questions to make sure that you're safeguarded and make sure that there's nothing else that we need to put in place, whether it's community safety, getting involved to try and make your area safer for you. And then that police officer would deal with that investigation, and they would be that point of contact with you throughout the investigation. And then, as Gale kindly told us, it would then go through a CPS once we'd done that investigation. If it didn't go through CPS, if we didn't have enough evidence, obviously then it'd be closed, no further action, or we would look at some intervention work. So there's different things, for example, in schools, colleges, places like Road and Park that we're looking into as well, but we can do things. I won't go into questions because obviously we're going to do those at the end, and they're just my contact details. So I have left some cards with me as well, because obviously part of my role is getting to know what you guys think, and if you've had any experiences with us, then opinions of that, because we obviously part of my role going out doing training, I need to know what the community think and what the feedback is from the community, so that I can help to improve things in the future. So it's on there.
Good evening, everybody. I've got a minute to be told. Alright. I've got 1 minute to talk. So, man, just before I talk, has anybody been a victim of hate crime? Put your hands up. Anybody been a victim of hate crime? Put your hands up, yeah? Have you reported it? Put your hands up.
No.
Why not? Why not? Go for
They
it.
were just young kids.
Just young kids.
Yeah. As I was passing, they were just shouting, go back to your country.
Have you got family? Have you got children?
Yeah, I got children, I got
If someone said to your
grandchildren.
child, go back to your own country in front of you, what would you do then? If someone said that to your mother, what would you do then? If it said to your father, what would you do then?
It's not nice, but at that very time, I didn't even think of, and I didn't know that
No.
I could just.
And that's the thing sometimes. We need to stand up. You know, our guest speakers have already talked about standing up against racism. We've got to make that step as well. So therefore, you know, it's everyone's responsibility, but more so your responsibility as well. We've got a duty of care. You've got a duty of care for yourself as well. So where you see it, talk about it, stamp it out, call it. And if it happens in the Cleveland area or any other areas, you contact your local authorities, your police, your third-party reporting centres, whoever. You need to shout about it. You need to let them know and challenge it. For Cleveland, Danny is a fantastic officer. I'm not just saying that because she's here, but we've got the right mechanism in place. You know what? Call it out. Come on, sorry.
Yeah, for in the case if I've been reported for the police, and after the police go in that person, because happened to me twice, and them knows I's the one reported. Them can come and look for me and they do it worse. That's I never reported because I scared.
I know, and those is a fine line, because we wouldn't necessarily come out to you for an incident in a place, like you see, Danny's is not in uniform, I'm not a police officer by the way, but Danny's not in uniform today. We have ways of talking and speaking and seeing what's best for you.
Yeah, because the first is 2 times, no, 3 times. One time he throw firework on me. I walk in the street. The second time I finish work, I'm in the front door of my house, open the door, the kids coming behind me, knock me out, and they stole my bag, phone, everything I have. And the torture time, I jump out the bus with shopping, 2 bag shoppings, and the 2 drug addicts push me the floor again, and they stole on me again.
Right, so,
You know.
Sorry, even if you don't necessarily want to go down the route of us getting the people responsible and talking to them, there's still things we can do to support you and to safeguard you, and if we don't know about it, we can't do anything. So
Yeah.
please report it, because you shouldn't be living with things like that.
Yeah, because after I stay scared for go out for the house alone,
Yeah.
or then I
That's not
think
right.
all the time I go out, something gonna
do you live
happen.
in Cleveland?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll speak to our outside after this meeting, if that
Yeah.
would help. It would help.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got how many seconds? I know it's a late evening.
30 seconds.
I know it's a late evening, but you know what? It's valuable. It's valuable time. My bit's different, slightly different slant, but as you mentioned, some great speakers about what you put is what you get back out of it. We need to be a part of that institute sometimes. So my bit's around recruitment, believe it or not. As police officers, hang on, I'll do my presentation very quickly though. Well, this is me. I'm not a police officer. I'm a member of staff. I'll leave it as that. A loosely member. So if you want to join Cleveland Police, there's different ways of doing it. We've got some QR codes. Actually, just a quick question. Can you name some of the roles in Cleveland Police? What type of jobs?
Police officers.
Yes, one. Next.
Control staff.
Oopsie. Oopsie. Control staff, yes.
Dog handlers.
Yeah.
ICT.
Forensics.
Yeah, ITC. Anybody else?
CID.
CID. We have different roles. We have cadets. Sorry? Go for it.
Interpreters?
Yes. Well, not direct, but we have people. So I was Cleveland Police. I speak 6 different languages and a bit of Geordie, you know what I mean? But I can't write at all, not even in English. I'm terrible. But it's not part of our, we actually have a translation interpretation service. So it's a good one that you mentioned. We buy in a service. So if your first language isn't English and you want to report hate crime, mention your language and we will get an interpreter over the phone. Here's that. So some of the roles: traffic response, drugs enforcement, special branch, cadets, specials, volunteers. You know what, the whole raft of police and non-police staff roles. If you're really interested, you know what, go onto our website, have a look. The right to work, and some of the barriers that you have, you think, well, actually, I've got my remain to stay, I can work, I've got my work permit, or we can do the vetting checks. The big ones that we have for police officers, and there's 2 barriers, if you want to become a police officer, is as long as we can go back 3 years in terms of vetting, and make sure that we can do the right checks and balances, so we get the right people in. And secondly, that you have the right to work. Oh, it's an important one, believe it or not. Driving license is a big one. Obviously, you can't drive fast cars to chase people if you haven't got a driving license. So that's in a nutshell. That's it. But if you've got the right to work and you have a driving license and you have these different courses that we're doing now, and it's the entry level at the time. So I'll come on to that very quickly. You can say that, but there's not somebody from CPS there. Oh, we've got a puppy next to you.
I've got a police officer and everything.
I know. So there's different types of roles that you have, and really good. Like tomorrow evening, we've got call handlers. Does anyone know where the call centre is in Middlesbrough? Edmonton. So tomorrow evening, between 6 and 8, we've got nearly 80 people coming just to have a show and tell. Have a look around, taste, see what you think. Not try before you buy, but we'll give you an insight what that looks like. Same with the police. If you're interested in joining the police, you know, we can set up things like ride-alongs, get in the back of a police car, see what it's like, so forth. There are different entry routes. So there's a PCDA one, and it'll do. I call it it'll do. For community support officers, it's if you've got a level 4 qualification, you'll or equivalent, we can put you on. I'm going to roughly switch you to some right behaviours. Love quotes. So really, what I'm not going to read it out, but you can read it yourself. Okay. So think about what you do before joining, and it's a really important and purposeful one. Things that we go on, keep yourself protected and make sure you're on the right platform and doing the right things. Got QR codes to scan, but in a nutshell, I'm going to drop you some of these off to police officers. So if you've got any friends, family who are interested in joining the force, please let us know. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
But in her case, what could she have done?
Which young lady?
Yeah, we will be taking
Oh,
more
sorry.
questions.
My time is up. Thank you.
I know I can't do anything about it. Yeah, except for the fact that probably, I'm not sure if you'll be able to take me into the meetings.
Why?
Well, the only thing I know how to do is to talk.
You'll make a perfect good police officer. And listen is true.
Oh, once again, want to appreciate the Cleveland Police. Please put their hands together. We have just very few more minutes to go, and we'll be taking all questions from 3 speakers, or should I say 4? Okay, 4 speakers. We'll be taking questions. But before then, we want to have a group photograph.
Have you got it all in?
We have the picture already.
Oh, there's a picture on the white. Grab the chair and sit in.
Okay, so video now. So we all say no to hate crime. 1 to go.
Say no to hate crime.
Say no to afrophobia.
Say no to afrophobia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we do that again?
So questions, please. Okay, I want to see the total amount of questions we have. Yeah, 1, 2. Okay, so let's go with 2 first. You wanted to list? Okay.
Yes, so like I've had several experiences. I can't go into all of them with state crime. But as at the time, one particular one, I myself didn't even identify it as a hate crime. I knew it was some form of racism. So my question is, if 4,000 police officers have been trained, then they should be able to identify when somebody comes forward with a case and complains about something and say, because the person may not be able to realize that it's a hate crime. So the police officers be able to say, oh, that's a hate crime, then they should now identify it and list it as such. Because the experience I went through, I came back from work, it was a night, it was like past 9, and I parked right in front of my house, and there were these 3 people, a guy, 2 women. I knew they were inebriated, but I thought it was just drinking, I didn't realize they were on drugs. So it was later on the police officers told me that they'd been on drugs, and I called, when I got down from my car, actually they were in front of my house, but it was street parking. So when they moved, I waited for them to move because I knew something was wrong from where they were moving. So I parked. They moved and I parked. And the guy comes around to me and says, knocks on my window and says, did you not see me? From where he spoke, I knew something was wrong. I thought it was just drunk. I didn't realize it was on drugs. And there were 2 women. And from there, it just escalated. And I kept quiet. I didn't say a word. I was inside my car. And they came knocking on my car, slashed my tire, broke my mirror, and before I knew there was a crowd of young guys that came. Now the young men knew something that they were at fault, but of course they wouldn't say that. So I had to protect myself. So what I did was, when I came down from the car, it was just three against me. So I tried to hit him, but I knew they were not steady, so I kept stepping back. Now, when the crowd came, I realized I was in danger, but I locked my car. They couldn't get in, so they slashed the tire, broke the mirror, and all of that. So I stepped back, and I called the police. I went round the back of the other street. I didn't go into my house. I went round the back so they wouldn't know where I'd come up. I was living there. And when I called the police, they came, they actually caught them. And there were some guys, I think they were streets wardens. So I think they also witnessed it, so they talked to me about it later on. But for me, at the end of it all, they caught these people, and then they say to me, do you want to press charges? And I asked, I said, if I press charges, what will happen? And the guy was honest with me. He said, look, you can't say they can press charges, do what they have to do, but, and I asked, I said, do they come after me? Because it's easy for them to find out where I live. But if when they're okay, then I'll say, oh, they won't come after this person. Now what I think now, when I look back at it, I'm like, why didn't these police officers tell me that's a hate crime and offer me that protection and say, okay, you can move forward? I didn't know in that moment because I wasn't thinking about that. What I was thinking about was protecting myself and my future and my family. You understand? So if so number of police officers are trained, then they should be able to offer extra information and support. That's what I think. And that's just one case. The other case is where you can't report. I stand in front of my house, somebody throws eggs at my door. I walk down the street, somebody says, just trying to insult you, but I've learned to, let intelligence ride over that. Somebody says to me, just looking for trouble, has something to say and says, oh, your top is so pink. So what do I say? Thank you, and smile. But another person wants something, wants it to escalate. So many things. How many do you want to talk about?
Okay.
I believe, personally I could be wrong, but I believe the support is not enough.
Okay, I think, thank you for that very good question. I don't know if the CP wants to say something about that, or is it the police?
It's a combination of both, actually. I mean, in terms of, I'll just come in, sorry, Gale, is there anything you want to say from that perspective?
Not really, because I think it was the reaction of the police.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's a number of things. You mentioned, I'll go for the latter thing. Putting eggs on your window, could happen to anybody.
Yeah.
How will you know that's a racist action? But if it's the same people and it's perpetrated, then 100% yes. There's a picture. Did you report it? Did you log it? And those type of information, we need that so we can say to CPS, actually, this is the reasons why it is a hate crime. Did this happen recently, or is it?
That's just over time. Yeah, the one with the eggs, maybe about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
The one with the
car.
The car. I've had my daughter's bike was stolen. Mine was stolen. We actually saw the guys that stole it. Went to report to the police. Fortunately for me, somebody was videoing, so he gave me the video of everything that happened. Showed it to the police. I didn't go to the police station because this happened and it was evening, and then the next day I was going somewhere. I was going to go to the police station after. And I just saw some policemen in a van, and there was a young man, and I said to you, there was a young man and an older man. And I said to them, oh, this happened to me yesterday, I don't have a video. I was fortunate enough, somebody videoed it for me.
Yeah.
And the young man understood, you could see he was interested, he was concerned. But the older man was quite dismissive. Sorry, I have to say it, he was quite dismissive. He said, well, we have so many cases, we're short-staffed, and police officer, I can still remember his face till today.
I can't justify anybody, we get trained on lots of different things in our day-to-day life. In every organisation, you're going to get some good people and not so good people. Some people who can do their job fantastically well, and some people maybe not do as good as well as somebody else. So I can't justify anyone's action.
I'm not even saying this to point fingers, but I just want to, the reason why I'm saying this, just for you to know why people don't come forward.
No, I think it's a valid point.
To come forward, and they come after me, they come to my house.
So it's a really good point, because what we have independent advisory groups in each of the districts that you can sit on. IAGs are called, and they come together collectively. But whenever you see something like this, come report it, tell us, we can do something with it.
When somebody tells you to your face, it's not a priority case.
Sorry?
Somebody tells you it's not a priority case.
Yeah, and that's not a good person.
Yeah, that shouldn't have happened. But like Satnam said, we can't just, without being there, we can't justify what that person's actions. But obviously, I can only speak since I've been in post since May, and that kind of shows the importance of the role. This post was a brand new post, so there hasn't been anybody in that post where, so I'm kind of overseeing everything, so that's why hearing things like that is important to me, because it helps me shape the training and stuff that I do with officers. And quite often I'll go back to, if I hear from someone in the community or a, you know, a community leader or something, that, oh well, this has happened and they haven't had any feedback, or this has happened and maybe it's not the right outcome, I'm quite happy to go back to that person or that supervisor of that person and ask questions, and that's part of the role, my role, so that the community are getting dealt with appropriately, because sometimes some things do slip through the net, like with everything, but with there's kind of that security there that I'm there to help, and that's why, you know, I'll give you my details at the end if needs be, and we can help in any way we can.
Daniel, can you please use the opportunity to speak on IH?
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, independent advisory group, they've got 4 of the districts. Sorry, just to finish off with Danny's, the scrutiny levels, I can't comment from the past, I can comment on now to what happened. We will challenge at every level. Doesn't matter if you're a PC or a chief constable, we will challenge everybody and anybody and the systems that we work. But you need to, I think you mentioned it before, you need to stand up and you need to tell us. But I know if you get put off by one person, and in life, we've all done that, we've all been put off by a certain thing, you can't do that job, not good for you, don't do that, you can't do that. But actually, that's one person's view, and that's maybe not a good person's view. I can't comment on what's happened, the dialogue that's happened, but all I know there's other people who can break that. But if you have suffered, I mean, if you are suffering or something happens, Danny's contact details are there, the mobile number's there, email address is there, we'll challenge it. There's other organisations which support victims of crime called VCAS, which I've left on the table. If you have any form of crime and you're suffering, you know, there are a good third-party organisations which work quite closely with us.
Okay, because of time, yeah, can we take the second question?
Okay, yeah, I asked in her case, what would she have done? You know, she made mention of the told her go home and all that. Yeah. So what would you advise? Because I had 2 weeks ago, let me tell you about what happened to me. About 2 weeks ago, I just moved into the area around the Brambles farm.
Yeah.
So I was standing at the bus stop with my husband, and these 2 kids were riding their bicycle. And they passed this, I don't think that boy, he should be in primary school, a little boy. He gave me the finger, he was just saying some silly obscenities as they rode past, and he gave me the finger, and he rode past. My husband was furious, but we didn't say anything, we just got on the bus and we left. So, in such situations,
Did
what
you
do
say
I
anything
do?
about your colour?
Sorry?
Did you say anything about colour of your skin?
No, I couldn't really hear what he was saying because
Okay,
they were
so
riding
racist.
bicycle, but he gave me the
If
finger
you
and
want
he
to
drove
give
off.
the finger to everybody else, that's something like that. Not in a funny way. You look at him, he's just he's a lovely young character. Growing up, he'll give the finger to everybody. If you were white, if you were black, if you were Asian, if you wore a turban, if you had a disability, if you're a man, if you're a woman, that child.
If it was about race,
Yes.
report it.
Yeah.
We need to know about it. Even if you think, oh well, we don't know who they are, there might just be that they've got a school uniform on. The bus stop, there might be a bus going past with CCTV, normal town CCTV cameras. Even if it's a case that we don't do anything against that person, we've got all sorts of different things. So if it's a young person, we've got school liaison officers, so I work with those. So any incidents that I see come through in a school, I'll then send them out to do an assembly with the full year group around hate crime and educate them, because if we don't challenge at that age, it's just going to escalate when we get older.
I have a 14-year-old and I don't want her coming home one day and telling me with somebody patting her way back or something, you know.
Yeah,
I
so
just
the
don't
more we
want
can
to have
educate,
such.
the better, because then it stops it escalating later in life. Because if they don't get challenged at a young age, what are they going to do when they get older?
And this is learned behaviour. The Equality Human Rights Commission had a poster, and it's a fantastic poster. It had 9 different babies from different nationalities and different backgrounds. The sign was, where's the racist in me? When you're a baby, it isn't.
No,
Very
it's not.
powerful poster.
It's actually
It's learned behaviour. So the peers or the elders or whoever they associate with, that's where.
Media.
And social media, it happens. Things are happening in different countries. You know, there's always different attacks, and you get targeted.
unfortunately, in society.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Thank you so much.
Any
Yeah.
other questions?
Yeah, questions?
Take.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I met you some months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't had so much relationship then, but I like you. I think I had a similar experience to our sister out there. And because this is not the first discussion about hate crime. And I'm hoping that we all took our time to be here tonight. And I hope it's not going to be one of those tick the box discussion. Just, they asked us to come and we're here. So, what is it? Because I had one similar experience, it's just that I live with the police. My office was broken into, and so many things were stolen, taken away, laptops, cash, so many things. I reported the case. Normally, that is what you would expect someone to do, yeah? I reported personally to the police. They gave me the reports number or something. Yeah. So, they asked me, they told me somebody would be visiting that day. I think it happened on Thursday, it was Friday night morning. And on Monday, somebody came and started, I think it was Monday or Tuesday that they sent somebody from fingerprints army or something. Forensic from Friday. Somebody just came on Monday or Tuesday to do forensic. And I waited Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. We had to start working again. So after that, he told me they will be contacting me, I think 2 days or 3 days later or something. But till now, we never have seen anybody from that. Then something happened, I think a week later, because I've had similar case before. And somebody told me, somebody advised me that if I want to see what they stole from me, I should go to Cash Converter. That was years ago. So I remember that, and I went to Cash Converter. And lo and behold, I saw one of my memory cards at Cash Converter. I bought it, and I got receipt for it, and I went back to the police. That I think 1 week or 2 weeks ago, I came here, nothing. You said somebody will come, ask anybody. But now, see, this is one of my memory cards. What do you have to do? They said, okay, all right. She wrote it down, and somebody will contact me. Maybe the person will come tomorrow. I don't know. So the question is that done to me because I'm a black man? Or that is just the normal way of your operational system? Because I have tried to talk to so many people, and the same thing, everybody is saying. So now the thing is, I have to learn how to guide myself. All the trust I have in the police, should I continue and things will continue to go this way? Or do I learn what to do to guide myself? You understand? So, and also, is it because I'm black? You understand? And I was so also disappointed when I was talking to another police officer from Durham Constabulary. And I said, this is what happened, because I think he was looking for a criminal. So he knocked up in our office. And I let him in, and I got talking about it. I said, okay. I said, they have had a lot complaint about criminal police. So the question is, are we going to continue going like that, or we continue to see more of this, just tick the box discussion, or we need to get into action? Let all this stop.
There are 3 answers to that. I can hopefully try to deconstruct it a little bit. One, if you're not happy with the police service, we have the OPC has a complaints department, and then you can report and log that, and they will investigate it, and they will ask and try to join the dots up. So if you get a not good service, and you're in your rights to go to any issue, any situation, go back to the OPC's office, and they will connect the dots up and find out why, what, who, that should have been that, why wasn't that done. So that's a safety net, as one.
That's the Office of the Police Crimes.
Yeah, sorry. Oh.
Yeah, you just look on our website and it tells you how to make a complaint very easily.
Yeah. If you want to say anything about that,
Well, just that, sort of over the last year, the complaints process has changed in the police. So when I worked for Steve Turner, Police and Crime Commissioner, so when he came into office in May last year, one of the things he wanted to do was take over the complaints process within Cleveland Police and make it a bit more independent. So now every single complaint that comes in comes through our office to be triaged. So the more serious complaints will still then be passed to the Department of Standard and Ethics within Cleveland Police. But a lot of the complaints that we receive are resolved by our team. So it gives that bit of independence, because sometimes people think, well, I don't want to complain to the police and it's just be investigated by the police, so you're complaining to a separate organisation. It gives it that bit of independence. But I should have brought some leaflets with me, I apologise. But if you go onto the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner website, it tells you how to complain. So you can email in, you can write in, you can call in. You can do it through the Copper app as well, so you can download the Copper app and that takes you straight through to the complaints. Because like Satnam says, one of the best ways to sort of challenge poor practice is to complain about it, because then it can be challenged and officers going forward can be given feedback to make them improve the way that they deal with members of the public going forwards.
Okay, so far all the complaints you've had, have they been dealt with? Or to what extent have they been dealt with?
So I don't have the figures with me at the moment. I have to find out that information and send it back through Ola to give out to people. So I know that since we took over, a lot more of the complaints have been resolved at that first stage. Sometimes when people complain, they just want the opportunity to have that discussion and have things put right quite easily, really. It's not so many that then go on to have to go through the full, more serious investigation, but I can certainly find some information and feed it back through Ola in terms of statistics around that if people are interested.
I'll be very quick.
Because like you said, the purpose of reporting is to make changes. Are these changes being made? Is there anyone who's going to report if no changes are being made?
Yeah.
Well, okay. I'll finish up very quickly then. Okay. Mr. T, I'm really sorry about your bad service. One of the things we can do is come have a look. We'll show you what it's like, and you can challenge us at that point. We'll take you for control. We'll get 1,000 calls a day, roughly, and then you can listen to, you can see what we go through and what some of the barriers are, and help us change and shape the service. We need that feedback so we can change it. We're not perfect, like I did before. Feedback. We're not perfect, but we need to change and keep on changing.
Okay, thank you. I love that. We're not perfect.
No.
Yeah, and we'll continue. Dr. Ati, yeah? Under 30 seconds.
It's just a quick one. I just wrote it down, so I won't just go over the time. Is there a way to quality check that the cases that are lodged and the decisions that are made are correct?
Yes. Independent advisory groups, get yourself on an IAG.
Yeah, Sarah, can you please just talk about independent advisory group?
Sorry, I thought we were going to. But we'll send some information out before.
Yes, again, I should have brought the leaflet. So independent advisory groups, there's one in each local authority area. So there's one for Middlesbrough, one for Stockton, one for Hartlepool, and one for Redcar and Cleveland. And it's an opportunity for members of the community to meet with the police directly, to raise your concerns, and also for the police, if they're making changes in their policies or they might be focusing on a particular area, they can fact check that with the communities and get your input. So example might be around stop and search policy that recently went to an IAG for communities to look at how that might impact on communities that might be targeted through stop and search. So it's your opportunity to have that two-way dialogue with the police. If you're interested in the Middlesbrough IAG, they meet every 2 months. They meet at the police station out the back of the station, so it's quite easy to get to. I will get the information on how to join to Ola, and then he can send it out to everybody who's attended if you're interested. You do have to be vetted to be on the IAG as well, so you have to go through a vetting process just because of the things that you might discuss in the meetings. But that's, again, quite simple to go through.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah.
I think, if you permit me, I want to ask Gale one question.
I was going to say, after that question, if anybody take any freebies, leaflets, help yourself, Gale.
Because I saw one of the feedback chefs, they just want to get more engaged with the authority, the leadership, management. I think that would be great if you see you next time. I received a letter 31st of October 2022. This is my first time of meeting Gale in person. You see online anyway. Thank you for your message 21st of June, which was copied to Jan, the former CPS.
Oh, yes.
I note the point you raised regarding 3 incidents. As none are verified to CPS, I am unable to comment further. There are 3 cases.
Oh, the files weren't sent to CPS?
Yes, they sent to CPS, and
Yes.
we are doing some work now. So what would community do in that situation? Because it's related to some of this, what you mentioned, related to black monkey, related, you know, all those.
Yes, it's like I explained in the beginning. I think what you're asking is, so the police investigate the case, and only if they think that there is sufficient evidence and it's in the public interest, will they send it to the CPS, and then the CPS deal with it. And I think from the sounds of what you've read out there, the file was never sent to the CPS, so we couldn't comment on it. So it must have been one of those cases where the police decided it's not going to go through to the CPS, we're going to stop it there. So if it doesn't reach us, we have no involvement in it at all.
So if they don't have resources, yeah, if they don't have resources.
Everyone's got the right to review as part of the Victims Code of Practice. Everyone's got a right to review of the case. So if somebody wasn't happy, so if they were told by a police officer there's going to be no further action, you've got the right to then come back to the police and say, no, I want that to be looked at again, and then that would be reviewed by somebody else.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I have to end this meeting by 7 and end it now. I want this opportunity to say a very big thank you to all our students and to all of our members.